supposed to be under control, but for several years now, it's returned to alarming levels. The Amazon is disappearing, and all fingers are pointing at Brazil. Let's just take a look back for a moment. Brazil had been making progress. In 2004, a staggering 28,000 square kilometers of Amazonian forest was torn down, the equivalent of 4 million football fields. In 2012, a fraction of that, less than 5,000 square kilometers, the lowest since monitoring began. Things were looking good. The planet's lungs, as they say, seemed in better health. But a year later, the tide turned with an almost 30% jump, and it continued. By 2016, it had climbed to 8,000 square kilometers. Hasn't gone unnoticed. Norway has always been the world's largest foreign donor to protect the Amazon, but this year it reminded Brazil that this funding is conditional.
If the current negative trajectory continues, we might end up with zero funding. We're estimating that this year funding will be cut by half.
So you ask, why is this happening? Well, basically, it comes down to horse trading at the highest political level. Time for a quick summary. In 2016, a corruption scandal saw leftist President Dilma Rousseff impeached, with Vice President Michel Temer stepping in until the 2018 elections. Temer's authority is fragile, to say the least, and the Amazon is paying the price.
The Amazon is currently being used by Michel Temer as a bargaining tool to stay in power. The agribusiness lobbies have a powerful voice in Congress. 40% of deputies are part of a bloc known as the Ruralistas.
The Ruralistas, now that's a farming lobby that favours, let's say, agricultural interests over conservation. But back to Temer. If we take a look at his inner circle, we have Blair O'Magey, Agriculture Minister and one of the world's largest soybean producers, winner of Greenpeace's Golden Chainsaw for his leading role in felling Amazonian forests. And then there's Eliseu Padilla, Chief of Staff under investigation for land appropriation, and currently negotiating the reduction of conservation areas in the Amazon. Then there's Jose Filho, Environment Minister and heir to one of the largest landowner families. While his ideals are praised by environmentalists, his ability to act limited. So much so that his budget has been slashed by nearly half. All year, there's been a series of government efforts to erode protected areas. And then in August, this bombshell, a proposal that would see Brazil abolish a huge Amazon reserve the size of Denmark, dubbed the biggest attack in 50 years. The idea was to open the Renka Reserve up to foreign investors, largely interested in mining for gold, copper and manganese amongst other things, a plan contentious enough for supermodel Gisele Bündchen to weigh in with this angry tweet.
Shame! We're auctioning off our Amazon. We can't destroy our protected areas for private interests.
A week later, a reprieve when a judge ruled that the president had gone beyond his authority. This comes after months of protests in Brazil, with thousands of indigenous people marching, some clashing with authorities over the increasing encroachment of their land.
These coffins represent all the indigenous people from our 305 ethnic groups who have died over the past years as a consequence of this influence in politics.
The government, however, for its part, is not backing down. So what more can be done to protect the Amazon? We're about to ask our guest.
Brazil has vast agricultural territories at its disposition. The forest serves an incredibly important role in maintaining the global climate, not just in Brazil, but around the world. So if you cut down the forest, you are shooting yourself in the foot, essentially, if what you're looking to do is have agricultural development. The loss of the forest means the destruction of climate patterns like rainfall that guarantees ongoing agricultural productivity. So any short-term gain cutting down the forest for agricultural production will be offset in the future. There is growing international resistance to the behavior of the Temer government and the ruralistas. We see this, for example, in Europe, where there are movements to try to stop the importation of commodities like soy and beef that come from conflict, be it indigenous peoples being driven off their land, be it illegal deforestation. This needs to grow. We need to see political moves that send messages to the Brazilian government that this abuses of human rights and the destruction of the forest will not be tolerated by the international community. We will not be purchasing these commodities if it leads to these unacceptable consequences.
It was under former President Lula da Silva that deforestation levels dropped most, and the man once dubbed the world's most popular politician plans to lead again. Yes, he was condemned to 10 years in prison for corruption, but still remains an election favourite. Defenders of the Amazon might rejoice at the return of a leader who saw true wealth in keeping a forest intact.